Hi, my name is Richard Capone. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Let's Go Learn. And today I'm going to talk about secondary math turnaround. The reason why I say that is unfortunately so many school districts and LEAs are struggling with math and they have systemic low performance. And today I want to talk about some of those challenges and how we're addressing this with a lot of our customers as well as new customers. So first of all, let me just give you a quick background. I founded Let's Go Learn in 2000 with Dr. McCollum of UC Berkeley. At the time, our reading assessment was our first assessment, and it was one of the first assessments on the market that was computer adaptive. We actually did computer adaptive assessment over a modem, a 28.8 modem. But at the time, we realized that students were not single scores. They were a lot more than that. You needed assessments that really answered why. In 2010, we launched our Atom assessment, which really revolutionized the way we were looking at math, because I think in the past, math was not always looked at from a diagnostic assessment standpoint. It really looked at more as summative. So let me jump right in, okay? So here's the first thing about math. The reason why it's so tough is math is like a foreign language. I think people don't realize this. But if you look at math, it's really broken up into these 5 areas: numbers and operations, measurement, geometry, data analysis, and algebraic thinking. And sometimes you'll even see on tests, you'll see these scores broken out. But you got to realize these scores are still summative scores. So if we look at numbers and operations, you see down there it says 14 subtests. That's because numbers and operations is made up of 14 discrete subtests. Each of those subtests is a scope and sequences of skills that are taught. Okay, so think about that for a second. That means when you teach math, you have to teach it in these different areas, and they're stacked. Okay, so all of these skills get together. It's foundational. If you don't have these numbers and operation skills, you cannot understand and do well on data analysis. Geometry, in turn, requires data analysis, and some algebra requires some data analysis as well as numbers and operations. So it's all connected and it's all stacked in building. All right, so that's the first thing. Now, secondary math, middle school, high school, but let's take a look at middle school. By the time students are in 6th grade, right, a lot of school districts will have maybe a proficiency of 30%, 35% in math. Unfortunately, if you have a 35% proficiency or lower in math, that means only about 14 to 17% of your students are actually on grade level, okay? Because there's some funny business going on, proficiency scores across the nation. They're generally speaking, when you're just proficient, you're actually a little bit low. But these students who are at grade level, they can see the green line. They can gain 1 year of math gain in 1 year time. And so they have a certain slope. But the students who are a year behind, the orange line, and the students who are 2 years behind, and look at that, 50 to 60% of your students will be 2 years behind or more. Those students, their slope of their gains over the course of the year is shallower, meaning they're not going to gain 1 year gain in 1 year time. And that's because by 6th grade or above, if you are behind in math, you are lost in your math class. If you're 2 years behind, you're massively lost. And that means most of your students are lost in math and they are not learning the content. So the solution is you have to accelerate learning. And so you have to have somewhere between a 5x and 10x acceleration rate so you can get those students back up to speed and get them on grade. You could do this through the summer. You could do this through maybe the beginning of the year, some kind of intervention. You could try to do it throughout the school year, but the problem with doing it through the school year is in the meantime, they're losing out on learning the current content, right? This is important. In secondary, remember, if you're behind, you're lost. So if you're lost, you're not learning. So this is a little bit of a conundrum. All right, now with algebra, when you start looking at high school or 8th grade, whenever you teach Algebra 1, algebra, in turn, builds on foundational math. You can't do algebra if you don't have solid foundational math skills. So it really built on the 4 strands here: numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, data analysis, geometry. It doesn't really build up too much on measurement, but sometimes it does a little bit. So you really have to have this in order to learn algebra. And so it's important to understand this connection. Again, it's like a foreign language. You go to 1st year French, 2nd year French, 3rd year French, then maybe you do a separate fluency class where you're talking oral French, and so on and so forth, right? Now, integrated math, same thing, a little broader. It also overlaps on top of measurement, definitely. Okay, so what are the challenges, right? So let's just sort of summarize this a little bit. When you enter high school, if you have a bunch of students, this is going to be their profile. Here's 5 random students, and there's 44 subtests of math, if you think about it. Notice they all have 5 different profiles. This means in high school, if you try to put students who are behind all in one class, you say, oh, Mr. Johnson, he's a great teacher. Let's give him 35 remedial math students and he's going to help them all. No, he's not going to, because how can you teach students like this? Every single day, they're all at different levels. It's not possible. So that's why it's really important sometimes to flip the classroom a little bit or do something different, right? So what are we doing? What's our secret sauce? So first of all, we're not teaching standards proficiency at grade level. We're going beyond. We're breaking the standards apart, going deeper because we know students are behind. We follow a diagnostic model of assessment. This means that we look at math in terms of these 44 subtests and we break it out. So here's a student's score. We see that he's a certain level here in place value, addition, subtraction, multiplications, and we find out exactly where their instructional point is regardless of their grade level. Okay. Now, if we take one of these like place value, we in turn, our diagnostic model breaks it apart. Let's take a look at the place value. Place value is specifically made of these discrete skills: ones and tens, hundreds, thousands, expanded form, millions, decimal place value. So we know that this student is right here. He's mastered these skills and he needs to learn thousands, 10,000s, and 100,000s place value, and then decimal place value next. So that is the difference with a diagnostic model, is you know exactly what you need to teach, where you need to teach, and you've broken math into these discrete skills and concepts, okay? So this is our model. We have a diagnostic assessment up front, ADAM, DOMA, pre-algebra, and DOMA algebra. These are our assessments. And then our engine comes up with a personalized learning plan. It develops reports also, so you can use it for small group instruction. If the teacher wants to break out and teach kids certain things, you have all the data at your fingertips. Every day you can create different flexible groups. But the student also gets the automated course that's been created exactly for them. Now, if you are using a formative test, the quizzes that you do on a daily basis can update all of your personalized learning plans, as well as it'll update in real time the course. So this brings us to our course, which is called Math Edge. Now remember, Math Edge is integrated into our assessment. They're one and the same. You have to have both. Now, why are we doing this approach? Because our fundamental assumption is that every single student is unique. If you go into math and you realize every student is unique, it changes your approach, right? That is part of our problem, why I said that. I didn't say this yet, but really it's not a math problem, it's an implementation problem. So if we go in there and assume that every student is unique, it changes the way you solve the problem. Now, first of all, this is the research-based model we follow under. If you want to optimize learning for at-risk and non-traditional learners, you need to really hit these 3 areas. One is cognitive load. That means, can the student learn what you're trying to teach them? You don't want it to be too hard. You don't want it to be too easy. In particular, what you want to do in general is to reduce the cognitive load so that they can actually learn it easily, okay? The second piece is motivation. You want them to be motivated. You need to make sure they understand why they're doing it and what they're trying to learn, so they're motivated. And finally, you want engagement. If you give someone lessons at the right level, but then you bore them to death, they're going to fall asleep as the lessons go on. Like, for instance, Khan Academy. Great, it's free, but it could be a little boring. How long can you do it for, right? So engagement is really important. So the challenges, just to summarize it, you need to hit those 3 areas I just mentioned: cognitive load, motivation, engagement, but also realize that what we're doing today is not working. These students are many years behind, so we need to try something different, right? And our solution, of course, is Edge 3.0. So here are the areas that we're really focusing on. First of all, I mentioned diagnostic assessment. Every student gets a unique path. Now, it's not a placement test. A lot of programs use placement tests. They just take one linear set of instructions and, kindergarten to 8th grade or 9th grade, and they place kids in there. It's not going to work. You need a true diagnostic assessment that breaks it into many areas, and that reduces the cognitive load. You give students exactly what they need at the right level. It reduces the cognitive load on them. The next thing is cultural relevancy. All right, this is really important. Can you make the lessons, culturally relevant? Do the students relate to the characters or however the lessons are? If you are a high school student and you're listening to Sal Khan talk, you're not necessarily relating to him, right? He's just some educator talking to you over a video. You need them to relate, and this improves motivation and engagement. The next thing is, we know music activates the brain. All of our lessons have music in it. So if you hear something, rise over run, you hear a song talking about something, And that's how kids are used to learning today, even adults, is we have music. People are looking at TikTok. They're, listening to music on their phones all the time. And so music activates the brain. It acts to reduce the cognitive load. It makes it easier to learn, also improves motivation and engagement, right? The next thing is voice intonation, right? This is really important. You don't want to hear a monotone voice. You want to hear someone who's engaging. If they stress things at a certain time, they slow things down maybe. Again, this reduces your cognitive load. It makes it easier to learn. And we got to remember, these topics are harder for students to begin with, so we need to do this. The next thing is multiple modes of learning. This really just talks about bringing it all together, right? We got the music, we got the visualization, we got the graphics, we got, intonation, audio. And this, again, allows students, it reduces their cognitive load, because when you learn in multiple modes of modality, we know that improves learning. And then, of course, it makes it easier for them. They're more engaged, right? Finally is gamification. This is really important. Gamification, everyone gets an explicit instruction, they learn the lesson, and then it goes into a gaming phase where you have to get points to as you practice the lesson that you learned. And this improves motivation, because students are actually trying to get higher points, right? Students or everyone is used to doing that for games. Again, they get engaged, they're trying to get points, they're trying to get badges, and that's really important. So these 6 areas I've just outlined really together make Edge so effective. And then just real quickly showing you an example. This is a student will have their own personalized learning path as they're getting badges. Sometimes they'll go back and do a review to try to get gold. But every single student has their own personalized learning path. But that's sort of in a nutshell. I think it's really important to understand that changing things in math is about changing your implementation plan, understanding what is the challenges in the environment, and then finding the right tool for it. And you can see from what I outlined, our system is hitting all those points, and it really will, and it really does help improve math performance. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our educational consultants will help you. It's really about coming up with a plan that's unique for you as well. Thank you.